Hello, my name is Hunter Smith, and this is Case Connections number 2 for the online biochemistry class at UNE. My first case is case study number 3. It goes as follows. A 5-year-old boy is brought to the pediatrician's office for an annual visit. The mother reports he has been sickly infant and often appears drowsy. She also has concerns over her son's persistent thirst and frequent urination. Blood samples are taken for insulin measurements at time 0 and 1 hour after a glucose loading test. The results of these tests are illustrated in the table below. So at baseline, the blood sample in the patient, the insulin level was 0.8, and the control, or what it should be, is 6 plus or minus 2. And 1 hour after the glucose load, the patient's insulin levels was 5, and the control, or the what it should be, is 40 plus or minus 11. So the questions are, what is this information likely to suggest about the underlying biochemical basis for the patient's symptoms? What would you predict the patient's fasted blood glucose levels to be given his current condition, e.g. above, for example, above the normal range, within the normal range, below the normal range. And list 2 regulatory enzymes that are likely to be active in this individual's current condition. So, my answer to the first of the 3 questions. The baseline insulin level is significantly low compared to what it should be, or the control group. Even after the glucose load is administered, the insulin levels are still extremely low in comparison to what the level should be at. These lab results, as well as the polyuria and polydipsia, point to this child having insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus, otherwise known as type 1 diabetes. If fasted blood glucose was given, the child's A1C or blood sugar levels should be significantly higher than the normal range, and that would be due to the lack of insulin that's being produced by his pancreas and being released into the blood. In the patient's current condition, many enzymes responsible for gluconeogenesis will remain active. Enzymes like glucose 6-phosphatase or fructose 1,6-bisphosphatase will remain active. These enzymes will be largely unregulated as well due to the lack of sufficient insulin. So moving on to the following case study, which is case study number 4. It goes as follows. A previously healthy 2-month-old female presents with jittery spells several hours after breastfeeding. Her mother reports she has not given the baby anything to eat other than breast milk since birth. The baby has only recently been sleeping for more than 2 hours between feedings, and that's when the mother reports these symptoms started. Laboratory results are consistent with hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar, but are otherwise unremarkable. Epinephrine was administered, and there was no increase in blood glucose, but there is an increase in blood lactate. The physical exam revealed a liver edge 4 centimeters below the right costal margin, and percussion of the chest and abdomen confirmed that hepatomegaly, or an enlarged liver, is present. And blood glucose levels increase after breastfeeding, but she cannot maintain these blood glucose levels within the normal range during fasting. Based on the information above, which of the following is most likely the diagnosis of this patient? A. Hereditary fructose intolerance, B. Galactosemia, C. Glycogen storage disease, or D. Glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency. In my opinion, after reading the case study, this patient is most likely suffering from glycogen storage disease. The most common symptoms are enlarged liver and hypoglycemic conditions in the body. These symptoms are present, coupled with the fact that the symptoms started occurring during the infant's fasted state screams glycogen storage disease to me. When the child sleeps for too long, she isn't getting any lactose from the breast milk to keep her levels up. This is common, so the body should be able to utilize glycogen, which is stored in the muscles and the liver, to increase her blood glucose levels. Glycogen can be broken down into glucose to increase those levels. Without the proper enzyme to break down and utilize glycogen, though, the liver will continue to swell, with excess glycogen being stored there. Lactose is the main carbohydrate in breast milk. It is a disaccharide composed of galactose and glucose. In galactosemia, galactose is unable to be broken down to glucose. This would cause increased galactose concentration circulating in the blood, as well as vomiting and diarrhea. These symptoms are not present in this patient, so galactosemia is very unlikely and probably not likely. Glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency is also not a viable diagnosis in this case. The lack of this enzyme would mean that glucose 6-phosphate cannot be converted to glucose and a free phosphate. The symptoms of this condition are typically the yellow coloring of the skin and the eyes, and also very dark colored urine. These symptoms arise because the red blood cells prematurely hemolyze. This is also known as hemolytic anemia and causes the symptoms previously stated. Those symptoms can be confused with jaundice sometimes, though, because of the yellowing of the skin and the eyes. These symptoms are not present in this patient, so no anemia was noted in any of the blood work, so the patient does not have glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency. So again, the most common and most likely diagnosis would be glycogen storage disease. That just about wraps up my little presentation here. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.